Folks, we'll go ahead and call the July 17th meeting of the Lynchburg Historical Preservation Commission meeting to order. Let's see. Do we have I guess the first item would be the consent agenda. And do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted with the exception of the minutes from the June 19th meeting, which are forthcoming?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we shall.
Chairman McSwain,
Yes,
Dylan
ma'am.
was able to get a hold of Stephen Morris from Morris Construction. He can be here shortly.
Okay.
So if you'd like to just
Oh, my word.
come to a consensus that those will be addressed when he gets here.
Yes, that would
And,
be items.
you know, I mean, he may have to wait until all the.
Sure.
other-
So items number 1 and 2 will be postponed briefly while we await the arrival of a representative from Morris Construction. So we shall move on to action item number 3, which is 1515 Madison Street. If there is a representative available, please come up to the microphone, the table here. Please, for the record, state your name and address.
My name is Jerry Tidy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm from 1515 Madison Street on Diamond Hill.
Excellent. And could you tell us the nature of the work that's going on at the property?
I've already reconstructed a historic building on the very site that it sat. I have documentary evidence to prove its existence going back to the 1830s, according to Mr. Ledford, who advised me several years ago when he came to the site. I have a cobbled backyard, which he dates between 1820 and 1840. And behind it is the site of a former stable that I have documentary evidence existed there at least till 1884. Some of the research I've done on the site takes me back to the 1850s when Captain Blackford bought, I'm not quite sure how many acres, but some acreage, as you know, previously this was in Campbell County.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my friend Mark Little has done a lot of historic research on his site, which adjoins mine. It was formerly known as Blackford Square, after one of Lynchburg's most illustrious citizens, Charles Minor Blackford. This whole area, my lot is about 5/8 of an acre. It presently looks out onto open ground, about 8 acres, mostly owned by the city. This was a former neighborhood called Frog Hollow. My lot was the center of a dairy operation. And in those materials that I submitted, there should be the photograph taken in 1923 of a huge barn on my lot. It's situated on a hillside. That's it, upside down. Yeah, I apologize for the lack of quality. Most of these materials can be seen in much better definition, either at the Jones Memorial Library or directly off of your computer from the Lynchburg History site. Very few people know about the history of this neighborhood. Unfortunately, it was destroyed pretty much in the decades after Diamond Hill was designated historic in 1979. My house actually dates back to the 1830s, also as attested to by Tom Ledford when he visited. This doesn't appear on the little description of all the houses that were made when Diamond Hill Historic District was founded in '79.
That structure, you're saying, did not exist?
I'm saying that my house,
the
not
house.
only is the date of it incorrect, the date of it on the deed, I mean on the city records, on the GIS goes to 1885, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But half of the house pre-existed that. And Ms. Craig, if you can show that rough sketch made in 1884 that appears on my house deed. Again, the quality is bad, but
This one or this one?
this one here, if,
Do you need it turned?
yes, please. The structure outlined in orange is the federal side of my house. Right now, my house is a unique hybrid of a federal wing and a 1884 Italian vernacular two-story wing. It's a kind of a unique. This is the proof of a stable existing in the place where my reconstructed stable exists now, and also the proof that my house predates the establishment of the joint alley. That joint alley has always been private property since Captain Blackford's deeding my lot to a Mr. McGehee in 1884. This alley was created to service 3 stables that you can see there. Mine is the one with the red arrow. The other 2 are on the property still owned by Captain Blackford at that time, known as the Blackford Tenement, built in 1880. This has never been a public alley. And in fact, the reason I'm appearing before you today is as a result of the misunderstanding that that was a public alley upon which Mr. Martin could send his inspector. As I say, I have written proof as well, excuse me, as to the designation of that alley. That is private property jointly owned, along with Mr. Little and myself, 3 other homeowners on Blackford Square.
So the photographs that we've,
Actually, I don't have ownership in that.
Excuse me?
There's no ownership. I have no ownership in that alley.
I wasn't sure about it too, but going on historic record, which I've tried to do absolutely in this whole matter, I think you do own 1/5 of that alley. How they work that out.
Not that I'm aware of. Our
Yeah.
property line stops at 610,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Physical access was removed from the alley to everybody adjoining that alley, but the residents of 1515 Madison Street. And for the last 132 years, this alley has been the main egress and entry to my back door. There's no other way to get to my back door but that alley. I was alarmed to learn that Mr. Martin considered that to be public property and that he could come and make an inspection by proxy from his assistant.
so just to provide some clarification here, so there was evidence at one point of a stable in that location, then it was either demolished or deteriorated and it was gone for a long time. You've added something back in that place and are now refurbishing it after having added it some time ago. Is that correct or not correct?
Yes. There's a photograph in there with the materials of what it looks like now. Could we see that one?
Was that the one that I was showing them before?
This one.
This one here, okay.
This one here, okay.
Is that that's its current state?
That's its current state, and that's its finished state, pretty much. It's not a shed. It's a carport. It's a recreation of a historic structure that was there. I have the testimony of former Chairman Butterfield in a meeting of a couple of years ago, which confirms my right to reconstruct a historic structure where it's at. As you can see, it's 8 feet in the ground. It's 200 feet from any nearby street to the right of the shed. As we look at it, Pearl Street is 200 feet away. It's also rising up another 15 feet, absolutely invisible from that aspect. From the back is Mr. Little's property. That also is over 100 feet from the nearest street. That's Locust Street. To the left, as we look at it, there are 8 acres of open land. That's not a structure within a quarter of a mile. Open, undeveloped farm land.
From this point of view here, can you illustrate where that alley is? Is it to the right-hand side, just
The
off
car
camera?
that's parked on the right there,
Yeah,
that's the end of the alley.
The end of
where
the
it
alley,
adjoins.
okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Now, the only difference between that and the sketch of 1884 and the Sanford Map of 1907 is that that little brick wall there in front of the car is one I've had to work with for many, many years. I've been here 26 years. And I established my legal rights to a lot of what I've done here a long time ago. I got my first COA 26 years ago. I'm a renovator and a preservationist myself. I have one of my projects here, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. I'm not a neophyte at preservation.
Okay. All right.
And- sorry.
I don't have any further questions at the moment, but what I'd like to do is go ahead and turn it over to the Applications Committee. They reviewed this, and they can obviously ask more questions as discussion ensues.
Do you have that map?
Yes.
We have looked at it. If you, I just need to ask a few questions to clarify some things.
I don't have the software to turn it around on here, but there is, you
Okay.
see his property? Do you
Mr.
want
Tidy,
him to
could you
indicate?
point out where your automobile sits? I assume
I have
that
a
where you
plan.
see D, that D8, is that the building right there?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I want to hand that to him. If you can use this laser
Sure.
pointer and indicate to them.
Sure. Yes, as you can see, it's right at the back of the lot. It's right in the center of what formerly was known as Blackford Square.
You can point to it with that laser, I think, if it,
Yeah.
You point the red button,
Do I press the front there?
the,
Oh, the red, okay, yeah. I'm on the fringes of Diamond Hill. This is my lot. It's about 5/8 of an acre. This is the open ground, formerly a neighborhood, full of historic homes, demolished by the city. They later on knocked down all the woods around me. I got there in 91. In 91, I was surrounded by woods on 3 sides. Even the back lot of Mr. Little's property and the Blackford Tenement building here on this side, all the way up to this small rented carriage house, surrounded by woods.
who's on the lot?
Here,
No, the fourth one down, the third one down from that. The one that's not really shown.
This here?
The next one.
Next one, that one.
Six-
that's an open lot belonging to Mr. Little.
So that's your lot.
It is,
Okay.
and the lot behind.
All right.
As you can see, how much open country there is around me.
All right. Do you-
And as I say, this whole area here was a dairy farm of some significance.
Have
The
you-
cow barn sat right here, 80 feet long, 40 feet wide, 40 feet tall. Much bigger, in fact, than the cow barn on Norfolk Avenue, which is much more well-known.
And you bought your property in 1991?
I bought it for $10,000. The city wanted to knock it down.
In 1991.
Mhm.
Have you changed anything on your deed since then that would have altered that alleyway?
No.
So there seems to be a conflict. So I went to the city's tax assessor's office, and he looked up lot 600, 604, 606, 610, and 1515, and none of them claim access to this alleyway in their deeds. So the city is calling this a public alley. And I'm just telling you what he said to me. And in order for anyone to claim that this is a private alleyway, they have to prove somewhere along the way, if they've changed their deed, that that had become a public alleyway, a private alleyway, I'm sorry. So according to the city assessor's office, as of today, that is a public alley. That's a conflict, I know from what you're saying. I'm only repeating what they told me, and I know you said what you said.
I can answer that very simply.
Okay?
I spent a lot of time in the circuit courts, the clerk of circuit court. I've been facing a criminal charge brought against me by Mr. Martin. I'm sure of my facts, and I have categorically written proof. I have the written deeds here, not only my deed, but some of my neighbors' deeds, and they all refer back to Captain Blackford's original deed of 1884 that ceded my lot to Samuel McGehee in 1884. The deeds that I researched of 606, 604, and 600 Pearl Street, and I believe Mr. Little's deeds also, all specify that this alley and its designation are traced back to the words in Mr. Blackford's deed with Mr. McGehee. And that is that there are specific ownership conditions because of private sewer. Captain Blackford was one of the first people in the nation to install private sewage on his property here. It just predates where the city takes over all the sewage. And you can understand why, because it created huge problems for house deeds in the way they were written, as far as who had the right to go on the neighbor's property to maintain sewage, to change sewer pipes, etc. It's very, very clear.
On
In
the
fact, while
building-
I was at the circuit court's office, I spoke with the secretary, with the clerk, and she said, what you've discovered is correct. The city has no legal claim on that alley whatsoever.
Well, we'll just
It's
leave it
not
at
in
that.
doubt.
There seems to be a conflict there. My
It's
other
not in
question-
doubt. There's
My
no
other question
conflict.
is, on the building that you reconstructed, when was that actually reconstructed, the shed?
It's never been in a state of complete destruction, to tell you the truth, because 2 walls of it are in the ground and 2 walls of it are made of concrete. Only so much of it could fall into disrepair.
So those, it looked like 6x6 posts you have there?
Yeah, 4x4 posts, yes. I put some of those in, yes.
Okay. So when you say you reconstructed the stable, you really just reconstructed those posts on that site?
Yes, yes, and put a metal roof on there. It had a canvas roof for many years. I don't know when this was taken. Is this a recent? I'm not sure what date this is, but I've got one here, a Google map of the structure being there 5 years ago.
May I ask a question on just the,
Well, I'm through, so we can open up,
Okay.
open for this discussion. I'm not
Please.
gonna make a move.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what we're being tasked to do. Is this a question of, we often have applicants come in and after the fact, I don't want to say often, but every now and then we have applicants come in and after the fact ask permission to put something in a place. So is that the purpose of this application? Or is the purpose for us to decide whether it's on, well, obviously I don't think we can decide
can't.
whether it's on city property.
Correct.
So I just want to know, make sure I understand so that we don't, possibly stray into fields that aren't our expertise, what our actual goal and what the application's asking, so.
As far as my understanding, the application was whether or not this building meets guidelines in its current state. I'm thinking,
You know, and to add,
go ahead.
to add to that, we're not determining whether it's on public land.
Right, correct.
So
What we're determining is that if, in fact, it's a public alley, it's public, so that you actually can see, if someone walked down that
Oh, I
alley, you
see.
can see the building, as opposed to if it's a private alley and you can't go down that alley, then you probably can't see it.
So technically, we could give recommendation on whether it's just appropriate or not, and then the issue of ownership is a totally different issue that has to be dealt with by whoever the powers are that be.
Correct. And however, I honestly don't know if we can render a decision based on the situation that there appears to be a standing, I'm not saying conflict because two individuals are fighting, but there's
Well,
a
according to the-
discrepancy. There's a discrepancy of opinion between
Well,
whether it's privately owned,
It's not.
as
a
Mr. Tidy
discrepancy.
says, and then the city views it as public.
The cities definitely view it as public. So, I'm not sure, what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. It seems as if, I think in the application, you stated that you were reconstructing a historic building. But obviously, that's not the case, because it's not being reconstructed as it was in 1880. It's more that you've reconstructed the wall, I believe. Are two sides of this a stone wall? And so you got two walls that are stone, which is the way it was in
No,
1880.
The whole upper wall, 40 feet long, is 7 or 8 foot tall.
And
Probably
that-
dates back to before the war between the states.
And that
I have
was.
400 feet of those walls on
and
my
th-
property.
And that was the
That I've
structure.
maintained for 26 years.
But was that wall the structure of the shed, the stable?
No, it in effect was one of the walls of the structure. It was a stable. It never was a shed. It was a stable, and the
So when you say it
photograph.
was a stable, was it a building?
Perhaps we can go back. Could you show the 1907 Sanford Map? I'm disappointed that nobody from the city or the commission has talked to me about this. In all the guidelines,
Well, I tried
That,
to today.
I could have explained a lot of this to you. This has been going on for 7 months. To much distress of my family. I have a family member who's 92, who has dementia, that my wife looks after and I look after 24/7. And we've had a criminal case hanging over our heads because of this structure that I'm entirely allowed to construct. And if I could answer the contention over the public alley, if I may quote to you from the deed of 29th of January, 1884,
But it has to refer
For my
back to,
property.
it has to refer to your deed, sir.
It
not
is
the
my
information.
deed.
Well, no, your deed is from
if I
1991.
may finish, every deed that I've researched in the 20th century relating to property on this square refers back to these very words that I'm about to quote you.
Well, that's what we'd have to see. You'd have to read your deed
Your
that
deed
shows
from
us that it
91.
refers to that. So that,
Well,
reading that would
for the
mean
sake
nothing.
of argument, perhaps you could accept what I'm about to read you, because this is the answer to your question.
Okay,
All right? The joint alley, and this is when the joint alley was created. That's why there's a sketch map in that deed to explain that the city has done no due diligence at all to investigate and ascertain the truth of. This is the truth. The joint alley, as marked on the above plat, is 17 feet wide at its mouth on Emerald Street, now Madison Street, and 12 feet 5 inches wide at the other end, on the garden of said Blackford, the current Mr. Little's property. Said alley, which now belongs to Charles Blackford, is hereby dedicated for the joint and common use of the owners of all the property thereon, as well as the property herein conveyed as the other property of the said Blackford, and no one shall have the right to close or abstract the same. That means the city, except by the consent of everyone owning property abutting thereon. I don't think I can make it more clear.
May I ask another question? Obviously, this building's been here for quite some time. So I feel like
Longer than 132 years.
our normal process, and summers are a little tough because a lot of people travel on the commission as well as everyone is traveling, is for several of us to come out and look at the situation so that, first off, you can explain things so that we're not, trying to guess from the maps, because, as you noted, there are older maps. And
If I could speak to this map, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go
well,
ahead,
what I
finish.
would suggest is that this isn't an issue that's a burning issue to be solved in
It is a
50.
burning issue, if I may say so.
Well,
You've had a stop worker on me for 7 months.
well, not we, because we are the
Your
Historic
secretary has.
Preservation. We're the Historic Preservation Commission, so we are trying to go off of what you're asking us here today.
Mhm.
But I personally would like to see it in person to better understand your application. And I also feel like that we are talking about deeds and ownership that this group really doesn't have jurisdiction over in any way, shape, or form. So it's a two-part thing. We certainly want to understand what's being asked for, but we also can't be in the position of understanding or, you know, making a comment on a deed. It's just not it's not our role unless I'm mistaken here.
That is going to be my recommendation.
And
that
the,
You-
right.
You all just stick to the application part, because the ownership
Right.
part of that
And-
alley is not really what's at hand.
And to do a good job with the application, I feel that we really need to give you the courtesy of a site visit. And I apologize that, you know, we haven't been out there to see that, and that we'd like to, I would suggest we schedule that so that we can see it, we can understand what you're speaking of, and really understand what you're doing, because you've put a lot of work into this property. It's a very interesting historic property, and it's also important that we do the right thing by you as well as the neighborhood. So I just would suggest we do a site visit. I'm happy to go but other people, we usually, you know, have one or two, so that we know, you know, understand the situation. I mean, in all fairness to you, I think that's appropriate, since you've put a lot of work into this property.
And just for the record, I did speak with Mr. Tidy today, and he would not allow me to go on the property. He said it was not within my jurisdiction.
Well, I guess what I would question is obviously today is our meeting, you know, so this is, if we were to be able to provide maybe 2 weeks' notice or something like that,
If
is
I
it
could
possible?
explain my reason for my short conversation with Mr. Morris this morning. This case was initiated back on 27th of January. As I say, it's been 7 months. A stop work order was put on my front door that day. No attempt to communicate with me was made. I came to see the Secretary of the Commission 3 days later. It was after a weekend. Explained to him that I sought an administrative COA because this was a historic site, and I showed him some of the materials I had. I didn't have a chance to show him the Sanford Map here. The Sanford Map is incredibly important, if I may refer to it. Sanford Maps are known nationwide for being accurate. In fact, somebody from the city in the circuit court's office, circuit clerk's, the clerk of the circuit court's office said that really they're the only measure by which you get any accurate information map-wise. The GIS map, I'm sure by Ms. Gregg's admission, is notoriously inaccurate, almost unhelpful. This map, taken in 1907, can be seen at the Jones Memorial Library. It contains a legend which tells you an incredible amount of information. The most obvious thing would be that cross mark on my building. That means that it's a stable. Obviously, by 1907, the other two stables were in disuse and not being used as stables. And in this instance, Captain Blackford had built himself a new stable right here, much smaller than the original stable here. A very large stable, 40 feet by 20 feet here, is very unusual. But it's explained by the presence of this barn here, this huge barn, which actually says Vacherie in the legend. I'm sorry, you can't read that. And these buildings here are all steel-roofed buildings. All of these. Interestingly, the alley has a line across the front, which suggests that that's not a public thoroughfare. Again, the Sanford Maps are the only really accurate scale evidence we have for the 20th century in Lynchburg.
Well, I do feel, I think that several of us, probably all of us on the committee have, understand definitely the helpfulness of the Sandford maps, and they're a constant go-to resource for us. So we definitely understand your point on that. But, to make amends, you did mention that the city did not really do the courtesy of talking to you about that. Well, I can't speak to that at all. All I can speak to is what our group is supposed to do. And our group is supposed to really understand each application, and we're supposed to look at it carefully. And some applicants come in with such great photo documentation, very few, but they come in with such easy to understand photo documentation that we really don't have an issue. It's all completely understood. In this case, maybe it can be seen from the street, and I'm certainly, after this meeting, would be happy to try to see it better from the street itself.
It's impossible to see from the street. Absolutely impossible.
So
So you're not
But
gonna.
we're left with a stalemate because the city, the
says
city says that is
it is
a
visible from the
public,
street,
no,
yeah.
no, that it's a public alleyway. There's discrepancy based on what we're hearing from the property owner, but we as a body have to go with what the city is telling us right now. So
Now-
therein lies our
The
dilemma.
city
Do we-
dropped its case against me.
But can I say this, that if we go by what, we do have to go by what the city tells us on ownership. If we go by that, normally the group would be doing a very straightforward review of this, saying, okay, our guidelines say you need this kind of roof, or our guidelines say you need this, and that would be our feedback to you. Do you other folks feel comfortable giving that feedback, or is there more extenuating circumstances? Because otherwise, we might not be accomplishing much here. And it's only fair to other applicants too, that we move on and address
Right.
each applicant in a
Based on-
forthright way based on our guidelines.
Based on the application as it stands, and us with the understanding that is what we're being told is a public thoroughfare, does that structure meet guidelines? The recommendation of the
And
applications
go-
committee would be,
Okay, and going back to what Lauren said, we really would have to
See.
see and determine what is actually going on that we can't really tell by the picture. I can't, anyway, I don't know about the rest of us. So,
so the recommendation would be pending a
would you like to make
personal review.
a motion?
Sure. I would move that several, representatives of the Historic Review Commission do make a site visit to better understand it, and then
I'm not
also
gonna let
as
them
a,
onto the site.
There you go.
well, I'm still making my motion, sir.
There's no jurisdiction to enter people's property unless you have a warrant. Historic ordinances
Okay.
do not allow you
Then
to
is
enter
it,
people's property.
I'll change my
That's the law
motion.
of Virginia.
Okay, I will change my motion, and the motion is, this is in your benefit to you not wanting people on the site, that's understandable, that you provide documentation, it doesn't have to be by a professional architect or a professional engineer, but documentations of what that structure is. What walls are stone, what walls are
It has no
wood.
walls.
Sir, let me.
You have the photograph, you can see what it is from the photograph.
I really can't.
It's a carport that has no walls. Under the historic ordinance, you have no jurisdiction
No.
to ask for any more information than that. There's a photograph here from 1923 that shows the structure as it was, and
That's
it
from
resembles this
1923?
absolutely.
What-
If
what-
you pull up the 1923 photograph,
Are you talking about this one?
that's the one. It's upside down there.
What exactly was the stop work order for?
The stop work order was because he performed this work without a certificate of appropriateness. So, we're not calling this an after-the-fact COA because he has a stop work order on him. Tom did take it to court. I'm not privy to everything that went on, but I think it was only withdrawn or he pulled back on the court action because Mr. Tidy brought in a COA application. But he had to go to great lengths to get him to put in the COA application. So he started to perform the work without a COA.
Well, again, I believe that we're totally at a stalemate because we can render a decision one way or another, but it may not even be appropriate until a situation gets worked out between the property owner and the city as to the exact right-of-way of that road.
This is
the
the structure,
alleyway.
right here. Same roof line, looks like a knee wall, it's a stable wall, exactly as it,
Sir, that
exists today.
photo is just incredibly difficult for
as I say,
us
if you
to
look at it
see.
on your own computer, it's at lynchburghistory.com. I'm sorry that it's grainy, but the cobblestone yard exists between the house and it.
Is the roof
And I'm
pitch-
allowed to construct something that was there,
Is the roof
that I have,
pitch-
that I have documentation for, as Ms. Butterfield quoted in the meeting, I believe it was October 18th, 2014,
You
a
said
homeowner is allowed
you said
to
you had a tent.
reconstruct an outbuilding.
That was a tent structure you had over the roof,
It had a tarpaulin on top of
and so now it has rafters with a tin roof.
it. It had rafters before, but they had to be moved to accommodate the 24-inch centers of the tin.
Well, I'm still would like to make a motion, and this time I would like to make it without being interrupted, sir. Because we've given you that courtesy of not interrupting you. So I move that for this committee to make a reasonable recommendation just on the historic appropriateness, that we need a diagram or drawing that shows the relationship of this building to the survey or to the site, so that we understand what the structure is made of, what walls are made of what material, what size it is, so dimensions, and none of this has to be done by a professional. This can be done by anyone being careful and considerate, and we can give you examples, they're right in our guidelines. And then, and since we are being denied access to the property, it is even more important that we have that so that we can render a decision. Additionally, we are doing exactly what we do for every applicant, where we ask this, and it's in courtesy to you so that we are actually answering your question properly. It's also in courtesy, not just courtesy, but it's out of respect for the historic district as a whole. You've actually, you've done a wonderful job restoring a house there. You've been caring for this property, but other people are doing the same thing all across Lynchburg in these historic districts, and we need to be able to render a decision based on a more solid understanding of what's there and what structure it is. So that's my motion. It's very long, and I can make it shorter if you'd like me to.
Well,
But are you suggesting that this be tabled until we
Tabled
have?
until, otherwise we
We
have to
have-
deny it, and I would much prefer to table
I
it
do too.
and review it, but I don't, if I'm an architect, I can't tell from that, and it's not our job to go to the library and do extensive research. It's the job of the applicant to bring in a diagram, even if it's not, I would prefer one done by a draftsman, but we don't require that of other people, so I don't think we should require it of this applicant.
I'll
so that
second the
clarification,
motion.
you have a second?
Yeah.
And can I just clarify, you're talking about a diagram of what is there now?
What is there now?
Not what was there
No,
historically?
I
Correct.
think he's given a good case for what's there historically. I feel pretty good about that. But we just need to know what's there now. That's important.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second.
It's, and I don't know if I can even add this as a sidebar, but this would be if a situation, if the disagreement on who actually owns or does not own that alleyway is fortified in stone with the city, and it turns out that it is a private alleyway, then this becomes a complete non-issue, as far as my understanding goes.
Does it though, because the guidelines don't just say
You can build anything.
Yeah.
I think what he's trying
It
to
still
say.
pertains, he still has to follow the guidelines for an accessory building on his property
If it
with,
is non-visible?
that's for discussion.
Yeah.
I think that if you cannot see it from the street or from a public
Area.
area, then, I'm not sure, actually. So,
Okay, well, we'll just go with the motion and the second. So all in favor? Any opposed? So
If
with
I
that,
may, if I may, I
please.
would like to ask Mr. Tidy to reconsider your reluctance to let some of us come and see exactly what has happened on your property. And with the understanding that we're friends. We
Yeah.
want to
Yeah, I'm going later
preserve.
today to
Yeah.
give, advice to someone who's thinking about doing something, but they don't wanna bring it into us till I can give them a little feedback. And it's not a binding decision, it's not to infringe on privacy, it's just so we better understand. And you've been an incredibly good steward of that building, the main house, so, and you've done good research here. So you've got a lot of great things in your favor, it's just we do have to understand what we're looking at, and so that we are fair to you and fair to the other applicants that come into here. But I'm fine with the drawing. If that's,
I think the important core of this is what can be seen from the street. My concern, I've been a critic of the zoning department in the city for nearly 10 years. What I consider to be a gross overstepping of bounds by the zoning department has now bled over into the historic ordinance and the enforcement of such. The guidelines for the Secretary of the Interior are very clear. The Code of Virginia is very clear. You have no warrant to enter people's property for historic business. Historic business, a certificate of appropriateness is only when you compare one building to being appropriate to another. If the building cannot be seen from any place in the district, there is no need for a certificate of appropriateness.
well, I think.
There is no harm done. In other words, the government has to show some harm being done to neighbors. Unless there's a physical aspect to my building, there is no harm done to my neighbors. It's as simple as that. As
Section
your chairman said
for
correctly,
Lauren.
if this red herring about the driveway, the alley, wasn't there, you would have no jurisdiction over what I'm doing. The law doesn't give you jurisdiction over what we do in our homes for a historic ordinance. The law gives you jurisdiction over what is seen from public view, from a public street. So I'm disappointed that now after 7 months, where I've been the object of a criminal action by what I've done here.
Well, I can
And
only,
now I've got to wait another month or two for you to get your ducks in a row.
so as far as I know.
I'm
it's the
wondering
first
where
time
the
this has come
secretary
before
is
us.
today.
We've not seen this.
I've been on here several years and this is the first
It's
time.
not your
it's come-
fault.
Right.
But your secretary has had this information and has committed crimes against me and an innocent third party.
Well,
in
that'll
order
be
to get this
determined
far.
elsewhere,
This is
not
the
in this
background, too.
commission, but
This is the background.
understand.
So
Okay.
here am I, again, after the city dropped the case because we had incriminating evidence about procedure. Now I come before you hoping that you'll be informed, and I find that you're not informed at all.
Well, sir,
But,
part of
sir-
our being informed is understanding your site, and when I go to the GIS map, and I don't have a survey, and our group doesn't have a survey of your site, and we don't know what these structures are made of, we can't make a good decision on this. And so you won't, I wish it could all be
I
resolved
can
in
show
one
you what they're
meeting.
made of right now. I've got pictures inside.
I personally,
It's a carport. You don't have the same kind of jurisdiction over the structure that has no electricity, has a dirt floor. It's a carport. I can put a metal carport made of steel pipe if I wanted to there. If it's not seen from the street, it's in your guidelines. I spent the last 7 months going through your guidelines. I'm pretty familiar. I've watched every meeting that you've had for 5 years. I'm pretty familiar with this stuff. As I say, I've got a house on the National Register of Historic Places. I bought that building for $10,000 also.
Well, I mean, as it stands right now, we've,
And this is it, it's in
It's a-
Petersburg.
it's a,
It's one of the most significant Civil War structures in the city of
there was a consensus
And
among
it's on
the
the
board
National
to
Register.
secure more information. Again, I know that several people would be enamored with the opportunity to go by and take a look at the facility. But if that is not to be, then at least we have to secure documentation as noted in the motion that was approved. And that's what we'll look forward to.
thank you.
What do you want me to do?
I'm not sure that got a vote. I got it, I heard
We
us.
did.
I
It
think
did,
Yes.
okay, I'm
Yes, it
sorry.
did.
So
Yes, it was
everyone.
a unanimous
Aye, okay.
decision.
Thank you.
Yes. So that will be, I'm sorry?
Could we
I-
read it back
Yeah, we
to
can read
Mr.
back,
Tidy so
actually,
that
if you-
he feels a little more clarity?
If there's some clarification.
I'm not gonna
we
be
can
able to read it back exactly because it was rather lengthy, but you were asking for a diagram that
Yes.
shows the relationship to the survey or the site. You wanna know the size it is, what it is made of.
Mhm.
Is there any more detail that you wanted?
I guess height.
Height?
You can see
All
all of
dimen-
those
all
things from
dimensions.
the documents I've given you already.
I would beg to differ,
I
but this
can't,
is how
I
we
can't open
voted.
that up for further discussion, but that's where we stand at the moment.
So they are looking for a more detailed diagram. Do you understand what they're asking for?
Sure.
Okay, so, and then do we need to make a motion to?
You have no jurisdiction.
That was a motion to table it,
Yes, it
wasn't it?
was.
With that, so you're tabled until the August meeting, which is the third Monday in August. And you need to provide that to Mr. Martin so that he can include it with their materials for the August meeting.
We'll probably go to court. I brought my attorney with me today. And as I say, I've been the object of a criminal prosecution.
Well, not by this board, though, so we.
And by the
don't-
city.
we-
I'm afraid you're advocates for the city, so it's your secretary, goes by your guidelines. You have no warrant power to enter people's property.
We've already discussed that we do not need to enter your property, but just as every other applicant in this room has to bring us sometimes some extra information.
Go by and see it. You won't see a thing. It's impossible to view from the public street. You have no jurisdiction. If you insist, we'll go to court. I'll go to city council.
Okay. All right,
Just
thank you,
take-
Mr.
I've lived
Tidy.
with this too long.
We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
See, shall we carry forth to number 4 or back to 1?
James.
That, I believe he is here for 1919 Vermont.
Do we have a representative of 1919 Vermont Avenue with us today? If you would approach the microphone and please state your name and address, please.
My name is Charlie Morris. I'm project manager for Morris Construction, and we're representing 1919 Rivermont and some of the potential remodels on the exterior.
Excellent. Thank you for your patience, and if you would please illustrate the nature of your COA to us?
We've got 2 proposed COAs entered, and one is for replacement of the front columns. They're about 24 feet tall, 2 feet in diameter, and they're wooden currently, and at least 2 of them have gotten in such a point of damage that we're looking to replace all 4 of them, because now it's structurally unsound. In our proposed replacement column is a FRP, which is fiberglass reinforced polymer. The detail on the tops, bottoms, and the flutes, as well as the tapering of the flutes, is identical to what's currently there. Finished paint was looking to go white, and that will give us structural integrity, it'll give us longevity, lower maintenance, but it'll give us the same look. And cost-wise, it's cheaper than trying to get a wood duplicate of that scale. So that was the direction that we proposed to go for the front columns.
Okay. The applications committee had an opportunity to review this.
Yes. I did go look at them,
Mhm.
and you are correct. There is one that almost seems like it's paper thin.
Right.
The one next to that, it's got some issues at the base of it. Other two on the other side look fairly good, but like you said, if they need to be replaced, do them all four. The issue, the problem that I see is that they're not identical. The ones that you're proposing are 24 inches in diameter. The ones that are existing are 26 inches. The base of the one you're proposing is 34, the existing is 36. 2 inches may not sound like a lot, but on a house that size, that certainly could make a difference in the
Okay.
breadth of the column.
Mhm.
Now, with that said, so that would not meet the guidelines in as much as duplicating what is there.
Okay.
I took the liberty to call this company, and 24 inches on the fiberglass columns is as wide as they go.
Okay.
However, if you did a red cedar wood column,
Mhm.
they make them any size you want at no extra cost.
Okay.
Approximately the same price as the fiberglass. So I don't know if
Okay.
that's something your client would be willing to do.
All right.
But I open that up to discussion. But that's the difference, is a 2-inch difference.
Okay.
Open for discussion.
So do you think your client would,
It's possible. We hadn't discussed the wood too much. They like the thought of, lower maintenance.
and I agree with
Wood
that. I
scenario.
mean, and we do allow that,
Yeah.
but in this particular case, we allow it only if it duplicates what's there.
Okay.
And
I didn't realize there was a 2-inch discrepancy.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's hard to kind of get the true diameter of that column, you're sort of eyeing it in, but the base was there, and the base is definitely 36.
Yeah, and I know they've changed the bases. There's some of the bases are slightly different.
Right.
So I didn't know, I was going back with this style that I know is.
Yeah, my
True.
concern is, of course, I assume it's tapered, so,
Mhm.
that 2 inches would create a thinner column. So as it stands, it would not meet the guidelines. So I would make a motion that we table this until you have a chance to talk with the homeowners and maybe investigate this company a little further to see if a wooden column made exactly to the same specifications as what is there would be available.
I've had it priced by local suppliers, local builders, cabinet companies and stuff like that, and it's double the cost. Now, if this company will provide it in a cedar, I hadn't talked to them about that, but.
Yeah, and I specifically asked about price-wise, because I knew that would be a concern. And they said they're really about the same price-wise. Now, it may be a little more because of the extra width.
Right.
But,
Okay.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
well, you gotta open it for
Discussion.
discussion.
Oh, yes, okay. Is there any
So my
discussion?
only question would be, to help them move along, since they've done a certain amount of research, sometimes we've allowed people to come in and review something a second time, so they don't have to wait a whole month, where they'll say, okay, we're gonna go with your option of this at this size. Is that something we could add to the motion, or no? I don't know.
Yes,
They
well,
they decide where to
and
go.
would you, maybe you and I could go there just to verify with the builder that this is in fact 26 inches.
Yeah, because if we put two long boards and measure on each side, we could get it
Yeah,
exactly
and I
right.
didn't have that at my
That's
disposal.
how we measure.
Okay,
That's exactly
and,
how we do it.
and, yeah, I made a mistake many years ago being an inch off, and
Mhm.
when you have a series, it's
Right.
shocking how different it looks, so, you know, to help you and the homeowner, definitely is good to get it exactly, because it's a beautiful house.
Well, and I had a vendor come, a local sales rep, and we measured this thing 3 or 4 times. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that we're pretty accurate on our measurements. I mean,
Okay,
but.
But so would that allow us
I'll
to
allow y'all
kinda
come
double
do
check?
due diligence if you like.
So let me revise that then. I move that we table this until an advocate can go to the site to verify the existing dimension of the column.
Okay.
And if it is in fact 24 inches, then it would meet the guidelines as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
I'll second that, or whatever.
Okay, and we'll open the discussion again. What if the owner decides wood is okay and go with it?
Well, I think I think they prefer fiberglass.
They do,
It's
yeah.
it's the dimension that
Okay.
we need to verify.
Okay.
And I admit that I didn't have anything to put up against it, and no one was home when I went there, so.
Mind I ask a question? If we do decide that, you know, it is the 26 inch and I need to go wood, if they want to move forward with that, do I get an okay on that, or do I need to go back through the process again?
Let me add to that.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
If it is in fact 26 inches and the homeowner would switch to a wooden column to exactly match what is there, then that would also be, also meet the guidelines.
Okay, very good.
Second,
Okay.
we can
Second
change
again.
and whatever, I don't know.
Any further discussion? All right, we're clear on that?
Were these
On
two
that?
separate things?
Yeah,
they
I've
were.
got two separate.
Yeah, so,
And
all in
Mr. Moore,
favor?
I just want to tell you, so if they get there and they verify,
Mhm.
because right now this item is tabled,
Yes, ma'am.
so it'll have to be discussed at the next meeting,
Mhm.
just in informality. But are you giving him approval to do it in wood? Because
26
if he
inches.
wants to get back to us and say,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, we're gonna have to do them in wood, then we can just shoot you a COA approval.
That would be perfect. That's
Okay,
what I would-
so that's
Yeah,
what you're
he has
saying,
an- He has an approval to.
to do it in wood.
In wood.
Can't do it in vinyl unless,
To the exact dimensions of
unless
the
you
column.
verify that it's 24 inches.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
got it. So,
All in-
so you can just
all in
call
favor?
Tom
Move
or
forward
me
either
and let
way,
me know.
yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, on to the next item, which also is same property, 1919 Vermont Avenue.
We propose to do a back deck. Now, I believe there's some pictures on here that I submitted of the back view. We recently redid the kitchen where we removed our original entrance to the back kitchen, and we've switched it to a mudroom entrance. So we've eliminated one door in the back, and right now they've got a very funky stairwell coming down. They've got another stairwell coming off of one side, then they've got another step down, then it goes down and goes back up, and it's a very hairy condition. It was remodeled and remodeled again and modified again. So they want to eliminate the second floor set of steps coming down from the deck and do away with those completely, and then make everything come from the original lower level deck and make a smooth transition across this, I guess, step down. And then they got a hillside with a sidewalk coming from the back gate. So they want to make everything one level, pretty much. And then just do one set of steps to the basement and eliminate those coming from the upstairs. It's a little hard to explain, but, let's see here.
And
Has the
they're
applications-
reproducing
go ahead.
any of the.
We're reproducing all the handrails in Sapele, and the picket style, picket sizes, all that's gonna be custom reproduction.
Okay, so could you explain on this picture?
I'm gonna pull this up on track.
Kind of what you-
It's easier for me to rotate pictures and stuff.
I was trying to get there today to clarify, but there was, when I went there was no one home.
Yeah.
Except the dog barking.
Yeah, I think they've been out of town.
So according to what you're saying, you're making it less complicated?
It's, yes, less complicated and enlarging the deck. We're gonna go across the back wall, proposed, go across the back wall of the kitchen.
Which
And
one did you wanna see, the photo that?
the
shows
photos
what
would probably
it
be the
looks like in
most,
back?
yeah.
If you could show whatever photos there are there.
Okay,
There you go.
so to the left, that lower window.
You can, where's
You
the,
got the pointer?
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
That is the kitchen window.
okay.
And then that is the new door back there. That was existing, but we've taken it from over here. There were two, one here and one here, and we've eliminated this one and bricked it in. So they propose to remove these steps coming up from there, and they terminate right here, right in front of that door. So eliminate those completely, deck in the second story deck, and then bring a deck from about right here and bring it all the way out to in line with the top of this mound where their sidewalk is. And then run all the way across this way, almost to the parking lot.
Okay, now show us that on that plan again. So that, you're talking about an open deck here?
Yes, sir.
Which
Yes,
one?
sir.
This one or?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that'd be
probably the
good.
better one.
So that,
So right here is where the building would be, and then the deck would come, and they've got fencing in, right in here. And so we would come in and tie in line, and once again, that's recessed down, and they've got steps going up. So we would just come straight across, and it would be a nice transition from side entrance all the way across that embankment that they've got with the sidewalk.
well, I hate to say this, but we would need to see a drawing of this
Well,
and how that relates to the other deck.
This is the existing deck right here,
Where does the existing one end?
right in here.
Okay, so those two lines, those,
Well, actually, there, right there.
okay, so what is that little square there?
That's gonna have to be one step. It's gonna be a singular step to transition from the height that they're at now to get up to the height where the embankment is.
Okay, so go back to the original porch. With your,
Oh,
okay,
right there.
that's the original porch. So now
Yes,
that's
sir.
gonna step down,
Yes, sir. Well, up.
up
Yeah,
onto that.
up right here.
Up onto that, and then those other two lines, is that representing another step up?
These right here?
Those are steps.
Yeah, they're
What are
going
those
down.
other two lines?
This is
No.
the upper level.
Nope, down.
Down. This?
Yeah.
This is that
one.
singular step.
So that's a step up again?
That's just one step. Mm-hmm.
So basically, you've got two steps up to that deck.
One. Just this guy.
Well, didn't you say the other one was a step two, right there?
That's where the original deck is now.
That's just a flat transition
Oh, that's
coming up.
flush.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's flush.
Yes, sir.
So you won't see that line?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
And so that will be one step up to the new deck, which will go the length of the house, is that correct?
It's gonna go, yes, and expand a little bit past, because right now this is the existing
Well, yeah, where is the existing house?
kitchen, right
Okay,
here.
so it goes past
Just in
that.
here.
This is, because you know the project,
Mhm.
you know exactly what this is showing.
It's hard to explain, yeah.
But because we don't, if we had the outline of the house, like if I look at the
Mhm.
Google Maps and it's got a little bit of a U shape,
Yes, ma'am.
because I've been by this street, but
Mhm.
this, you don't see this as much,
Right.
this whole structure here. So I'll admit, I'm having a hard time getting my
Yeah,
orientation.
basically this entire U would be deck, for the
Okay.
most part, and then to the left.
Do you have this hard copy with you that you could possibly
No, I
draw on
don't.
top of it
I
and
don't.
show us what?
No, I left that, I'm sorry.
And I assume you're doing this now, we want to get on with it, correct?
Yeah, I've got the estimate ready, I just haven't submitted it, and I've got contracts ready and everything.
Can you supply a drawing of this new deck. What we can approve today is, I think,
Now, the deck is gonna be in tracks, and
Okay.
that's what they would prefer. So that was another item.
and we need to see all that. We need to have a drawing of this.
Yeah,
Plan, elevation, just maybe the outline of the back of the house, the height and all that, and how the other rails relate to this whole thing.
okay, all right.
But I will move that we approve, well, I make a motion that the existing stairway can be removed as requested.
All right,
The new deck area needs to be clarified with
Right.
a drawing,
Okay.
scaled drawing,
okay,
elevation and plan.
all right.
The new deck needs to be verified with a plan and an elevation,
Yes.
and that'll have to be brought back to the next meeting. They can't
Okay.
approve that without all of
All
them
right.
seeing it.
So we are tabling, so as part of my motion, we will table this, table the deck for the next meeting.
Okay.
And we'll also, never mind, that was the other one.
Yeah. Do we hear a second for tabling that item?
Second.
All in favor? Any other discussion, I'm sorry, any other discussion?
The only thing I would, to help use his time wisely, if you wanted to have one or probably just one advocate or someone go out there, look at that drawing before you submit it, just so that I'd hate for you to come next meeting and then have us say, oh, well, if you could really tell us this. So if you'd like to have us look over that before the next meeting to try to expedite things, Robin gets in touch with us.
Okay.
Great.
And there is a list online that has the advocates for the, who do you think would be the advocate for?
Vermont, it's usually myself or Richard, but anyone here's, can help you
Right,
with it.
okay.
Well, I was there for the last application that they submitted, so I'd be more than happy
Okay.
to go out there and just,
Sure.
verify that what you got is fine for the next meeting.
All right,
So
that sounds
there's a
good.
list online under the Historic Preservation Commission, and it has Rick's phone number
All
on it.
right.
Sounds good.
Thank
So,
you.
all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, okay.
All right,
All
thank you.
set, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. All right, next property, hold on, my computer has to catch up. 317 Campbell Street, please, if we have a representative available. And if you would approach the tables, please have a seat, state your name and address, please.
It's Steven Stafford, 317 Cabell.
Excellent. If you could please enlighten us as the nature of the COA.
I have multiple, and which one are we doing?
Oh, the
starting
first
with
one,
Gutters, I
gutters?
think, was
Yes.
approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just 6-inch half rounds with the hangers, kind of like my neighbor has next door, Bill Holt. So I think y'all said those were approved, or do we need
Okay.
to, sorry, do we need to discuss those?
Yeah, it'll
Not
go
quite
through
sure,
the
this is my first
process.
COA. Not quite sure how it works.
It'll go through the process, but we'll move along, I'm sure.
Sure.
Applications Committee?
The half-round gutters and round downspouts meet the guidelines, provided you keep the gable ends without the gutters. Your gable ends have a little trim on them,
Right.
and I think your gutters, as they are now, they come around. Do you know what I mean by the gable end?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, in other words, there's no need to have a gutter there.
Right, of course.
So wherever your roof slants, I think you've got a gable in the front, you've got a gable on the side.
Correct.
So as long as those are kept clean without the gutter, I think I think there was some actually missing on the rear of your house.
Yeah, right now, I think there were some of those ugly, like case-style ones. They were just put up there to keep the water off the house while the previous owner, Thaddeus Dunham, was working on renovating the home. Just because it was so much water. If you've looked at the pitch of that roof, it's like 10 or 12, so it just... So I think he just had those on there temporarily, but I'll be ripping those down. I don't know what was originally on the home, but that's my plan, just to leave the gables unguttered, if you will, and then just run the gutters around.
Okay. I move that it be approved as submitted with the stipulation that the gable ends do not require gutters.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You are ready to rock and roll on those?
Awesome.
So far, so good.
Yeah?
Only 3 more to go.
I'll call them when I leave, yeah.
All right, and next would be for the rear fence, privacy fence in the rear of the yard.
Yeah, it's just a, so it's a 6-foot wooden privacy fence, standard. When you come up the house on the corner of D and Campbell, so when you go over the D Street Bridge, come up, hit the cobblestone, right there on the corner across from Daniels Hill Park. So you can see, and I submitted pictures and a bunch of things like that, but you can see the rear of the home on the way up. There's a picture of it right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's an old, little like stone knee wall there. But that's, yeah, it's fantastic. That's the best picture y'all seen today, right? So it'll go right down the side, right there. Unfortunately, they put that pole right there. So I wanted to put a drive gate in there so I could fit my mower. But yeah, I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. But yeah, just a wooden fence around.
Where is it ending on that? Could you go back to that picture? Is it ending on the corner?
So that's a good question, and I have a little laser pointer here. So this steps up quite a bit. So this is a hill moving up towards Campbell. What I was planning to do, because this is a door going into the basement, what I was planning to do was put some sort of the same fence, but 4 foot here, and then have it scale out to 6 foot here, and then continue around the back. Just, I guess, security purposes is kind of why I wanted to gate that in. It's in rough shape, and I plan on, at some point, like, fixing that door, but for now, running the gate back like that. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that
Coming
was
off the house to the
Yes,
sidewalk and then.
yes, sir.
coming
Yeah,
back.
coming off, and then I was gonna have a little, basically a drive gate here, like a 60-inch gate, and that's a sidewalk. But anyhow, yeah, that was my plan.
Have you talked to anybody in zoning about the fence? Is it gonna be 4 feet all along the street?
No.
No, ma'am, it's just gonna be 4 foot here, just because I didn't want a 6-foot fence here, because it's on a hill. I didn't want a huge 6-foot fence here, so I decided, okay, we'll do a little 4-foot fence. There's like a little stone cutout here, so you actually walk and the ground stays flat here. It's kind of hard to tell, but then it steps
The
up
reason why I bring
about.
that up is I think that's considered, because you have a street view there.
Mhm.
I think you have to do a 4-foot fence along there.
Oh, excellent, because that's what I'm planning on doing. So a 4-foot fence here, right? and
Right,
then-
but I mean anywhere along the street. You said you wanted to taper it up to 6.
Right, and then run it down through my backyard.
If you go to that last photo, I think it shows the whole length.
Coming all the way down that wall, correct?
You're
Yes,
saying
sir.
you can
Towards
only,
the
Yeah.
camera?
you
Yes,
only
sir.
can do 4 feet there? That's the backyard, though.
I know, but it has a street view.
Oh, really?
I would have to check with.
Could someone quickly look that up?
Yeah, see, you want to,
I thought,
yeah, go ahead and bring, if you don't mind bringing it in here.
That's something you're saying that's something separate from the historic.
no.
No, I'm saying zoning wise, and they have to make their decisions
Oh,
in
zoning?
conjunction.
So
I'm-
Zoning calls a corner property that says it has 2 fronts.
It has 2 fronts.
Really?
Okay, it fronts Cabell, and then what is this street?
D.
D.
He has frontage on D. I could be mistaken, but I've heard Kevin
Yeah.
explain this to people
That's
many
unfortunate, because
times.
my dog can clear a 4-foot fence.
Okay,
So-
well, I think, but we can approve it.
No, you can't supersede the zoning ordinance.
No, he just means in terms of like
Well, no,
the
can-
appropriateness
Oh, you
is-
could approve the material, yes.
Now, can we approve the 6-foot head, if he needs a variance, can we approve it?
No. You're not
All right,
able
so
to
can we-
approve
can we,
variances to
figure
the
this out
zoning
then?
ordinance.
So we
Unless
can,
she comes back and the
Um,
so are we
information.
certain of this, Lauren?
She's going to
She's
get
going
the
to get the
zoning
information.
ordinance,
Oh,
but,
oh.
Definitely certain of the 2 fronts.
yeah,
That
and I'm
just
certain of that too.
constantly-
Because it's always the first question we have to ask somebody when they call about a fence. Our very first question is, are you on a corner lot?
Now, when it turns that way, like where that huge bush is,
Then
that's
you can go ahead
considered
and go to 6.
backyard,
I
and
know
it
that
can
doesn't
go
help
up.
you because
And
you-
what
I heard
we-
you
So
say
are you
have a
telling me
dog.
that like in, you know, like in the city of Lynchburg, like I own this is my
Right.
house.
Right.
This is my house, this is my yard. You're telling me that I can't put a 6-foot fence here, just the city of Lynchburg, just in general, regardless of the fact that it's in a historical district, like our old house in Richland Hills.
Exactly.
You're saying if I lived on the corner, I couldn't put a 6-foot fence in?
Exactly.
If I put a 6-foot fence in, what would that look like? They'd put some sort of, fine me, put some sort of stop order on
Yeah,
it?
they
Make you
would.
take it down.
Wow, that's
Well,
incredible.
let's put it this way. She's checking on that. However,
Yeah.
let's discuss that.
Sure.
If you do need to, it has nothing to do with us.
Right.
I wasn't even aware of that, as a matter of fact. And, but if you do need to get a, if you can't, if they say you have to put a 4-foot, you can get a variance.
You can apply for
No,
a variance.
And a variance,
Actually, that's not true, Rick. I don't want you to give him hope.
My neighbor's on a corner lot, he has a 7-foot fence that runs down the entire length
I've
of
seen
Vermont
lots of
Avenue, or
6-foot.
Boonesboro
They
Road.
probably did them all without, but you're coming to this board and this is all on record.
But this
and-
has to do with historic, whether
I
it's.
know, but you're coming to this board and so you're being told about the zoning ordinance and those people may not have called and gotten the correct permission.
I didn't know you had to call to put a fence in at your
Yeah,
house.
and you're supposed to
No.
check on all the requirements
Uh-uh.
before you put a fence in.
I do know that sometimes if you step back from that, it's just that you have a narrow lot, so stepping back doesn't really help you. Now, I had to
It
do
would
this
have to
exact
be
same thing on a corner lot,
Sure.
and we were only allowed the 4-foot.
Sure.
On a
It's
side
different
yard,
cities,
which is
so I'm
on
not trying
Yes,
to
ma'am.
apply that.
fronts
But
both streets.
what we ended up doing was planting a hedge to make it
But how
tall
long
enough
has that
so
been
that,
there, Chris?
so that
15
the
years?
dog, the
I
hedges
mean,
aren't,
can't-
I
all
don't
can
think the
say is what
hedges
the
are
zoning ordinance says and
allowed to be,
You
no one
guys
can say
can't
anything about a
really-
hedge.
You mean on the inside or the
make
outside?
Well, we put our,
recommendations
you can
that
do
don't agree with the
either,
zoning
but
ordinance.
we put ours, we
Ah.
put ours on the inside, but you could do
Right,
either.
I see what you're saying.
I'm
Yeah, it
really
is, it
sorry
is
it's-
quite narrow. That's the only challenge of like moving it back. I mean, a 4-foot fence is just like, it's kind of a waste.
what kind of a dog do you have that can jump that?
She's an Australian Shepherd.
Oh, yeah.
She can easily jump a 4-foot
And-
fence. Like that little 4-foot fence, that horrible like chain link thing there.
Mhm.
She can clear that easy.
And Robin, one jurisdiction we worked in, gates were allowed to be bigger, so we had a few people put really wide gates in that were taller. I mean, I'm just trying to say, whatever
Yeah,
it
just
meets,
a big
you
gate
wanna,
run the whole way down.
you don't wanna break the law.
It's an accordion gate.
You don't wanna
just
break the
Gates
law,
can
but
be
you want
taller.
to follow
Right.
the law.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I'm sorry. That's a surprise to me. I thought I had prepared, but I didn't know that I had to call the city in order to like put in a fence.
Okay, here's one other question. Is it possible, and again, this is just a question, but is it possible to put the posts where the posts are slightly higher and above that 4-foot fencing, you're allowed a mostly invisible wire? Because we've done that for other people for balcony railings, that to make them look historic but not let people fall over.
I
And in
think
this
that's
case,
again, that's probably a question for the zoning.
because
Yeah, I
again, we
guess-
don't want to give you the wrong advice,
Right, I
but that
understand.
might be a solution to keep the dog. 'cause-
Well,
Sure.
Can
So
we go on to the next one and
Yeah.
while she's
yeah,
checking that?
yeah, sure.
How do we hit pause on one and move to the next?
I think you guys can just, we've got her
Yeah, we already
checking
know.
on
Okay,
that.
we're,
so you
yes,
can go ahead
we're
and-
waiting on some clarification regarding zoning ordinance
I
on
wish Kevin was still here, but I would. think
number,
he's left.
on number 5, so we will quickly move on to number 6, which has to do with the front yard fence.
Can't you text them?
So this is a
I can try.
I just wanted to put a picket fence in, right? Because we're right on the corner lot. There's a bus stop there. It'd be nice to have some sort of picket fence. So next door, the first house that was built in Daniels Hill, besides Point of Honor, is next door to us. It was built in like 1845. His is a Gothic revival, though, or Greek revival, excuse me. And he has the Gothic pickets, like kind of like that, or French, whatever people call them, different things, but they look like that. Next door to my house, so I figured, hey, he already has one. He has a merit award. I should go with what he has. So that's why I brought this in. But I don't know how you all feel about that. The only one other thing, by the way, is that these are pickets that picture I shouldn't have chosen that picture, but those are pickets that are created, sort of fabricated in like 8-foot lengths, right? So you just attach them and go. But what I'm gonna have the guy do is make sure that they're only that 3-inch. So he's gonna take individual pickets and put them on there, 3 inches individual, because I think the width is like 5 inches on there. So, and it looks ugly. So that's my plan as well.
Thank you
yeah.
for that clarification.
Yeah,
Rick,
that's a
go
big
ahead.
help.
Glad you clarified that,
Okay.
because I talked to your next door neighbor, and actually, our guidelines state that it can't be more than 36 inches. And I know Mr. Holt is 42 inches.
It is.
And he has a very nice fence. So what we would recommend is that if you can follow, in that fence that you showed us there, it wouldn't meet guidelines anyway, because you can't have more than 3 inches
Right.
between spacing, and that had, I think, 3 3/4 or something. So, if you're willing, are you willing to duplicate Mr. Holt's?
Yeah, I'd like to. I've actually I don't know if this is appropriate, but I kind of had a question for y'all. Because he has this Greek revival, right? And we have this, it's actually interesting. So the daughter of the guy who lived in this house, Bill Holt's house, got married, and then they built this house next door. That's why it's so close. And they used to share like plumbing and everything. But anyhow, but it's a Victorian, right? It's kind of like a folk Victorian kind of. But so I was wondering if it makes sense to even do the same fence. I've seen other, I don't really know what the norm is in Lynchburg for Victorian picket fences, but I've seen like the stick picket fence where it's just a stick. They're not really like ornate or anything.
There's
sort of
one-
alternating pick.
There's one up the street from you, you know where that little church is on Campbell?
Yes, sir.
And across the
Mount
street?
Carmel.
It's on the corner of C and Campbell.
Oh,
Not the
see?
church, but the gallery?
Yeah.
I mean, not the
Oh,
gallery.
you mean
Former-
the old,
former
right.
church,
Okay.
former church.
Former.
Right, that big beautiful blue or purple
No,
one.
it's a little brick.
Yeah,
Right on Campbell Street.
yeah.
Right, you're talking about the old, right, the old skinny.
Right across from the.
Right, right. So there's a big Victorian next to it that's like
Yeah.
blue.
Right, exactly. Across from that
Point
Victorian, the blue Victorian house, there's a very Gothic-looking fence with 2 by 2 inch pickets, I believe.
Okay.
And it's, it does this sort of thing.
This scallop kind of.
So that would also be acceptable if you want to do something like that, but you'd have to resubmit
Another COA is how that would work.
another COA.
Okay.
So if you want to do you want, I mean, I was going to move that we approve a
Yeah.
fence similar to Mr. Holt's, we can do that. And then if you want to, something different, you just have to resubmit it.
That's what I'll do. Yeah, if you can approve this one, and then
Okay.
if I gotta talk to my wife. But if
So
she says yes.
I will move that we approve a fence that duplicates the next door neighbor in style, color, gates, posts, etc.,
Mhm.
for consistency on the
Could-
two lots.
Could you repeat about the height?
So the height
At
can be
42
the same?
inches. Our guidelines say 32,
36.
36. But his next door neighbor has 42, which I thought was 36 until I measured
I
it.
guess,
So I think for the sake of that, for the consistency,
Consistency.
since the house next door has it, we could approve it for 42 inches for his house.
Do we hear a second on that?
I'll second it.
Now we can discuss.
Was there
If there's
anything
further
else that you
discussion.
said, style, height, gates?
Color.
and Color?
Oh,
Further discussion? All right, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good
Excellent.
to go on fence, unless you
do-
change your mind, and then.
Yes, sir.
2 out of 4 so far, you're doing
Hey,
good.
there
I
we go.
update on your fence, I texted the zoning administrator and he confirmed.
Okay.
That what
You
you
can have
done?
a 4-foot fence,
Okay.
only. All right, here we go, there's some more information. If he lines it up with the side wall of the house and runs it straight back, it can be 4, but anything in front of the side wall on
So-
that, wait a minute.
front yard has to be lower, backyard It's halfway between, at the face of the house, I think. You go halfway back. Is
Yeah,
the
I mean,
top.
basically, he's just saying the same thing. If he lines it
Yeah.
up with the sidewall of the house, and runs it straight back, it can be a 4, but anything in front of the sidewall in that corner, or the front wall of the house has to be no taller than 4.
So measure the highest thing next to it.
Right. Yeah, that's
Don't measure the low
unfortunate.
part, measure the higher part.
Okay, I
I
think.
could, do you want me to ask him about the wire on top? If, I don't know if that would,
Yeah, I'll approach them separately. But if you guys could maybe approve just having in that same style, a 4-foot fence in that same style.
Are we opened up to this one yet?
We can go back to it.
The other one's done, right?
Yes, the other one is finished. So if we go back to, which one was it? Number 5? Number 5.
All right.
So we're reopening our discussion on number 5, which is the privacy fence.
I move that
Yes.
the fence be approved for a 6-foot height along the adjacent property side lot line as well as the rear lot line. The side lot line maintains a 4-foot height.
can we call it street view
Street,
lot line?
street,
When you say side, I'm thinking of.
yes, side, street,
Okay,
street side.
all right, street side, I like that.
In addition, it has to be the dog ear configuration that you submitted. And it cannot follow the contours of the street, it must be level, in other words, stepped. So
Oh,
the-
wait a minute, I'm sorry. He made a mistake on his text. If I could have some informality here to try to call him. Do you guys mind?
Please
No.
do.
I think this is important. Because now he said 8 foot, if you line it up with the sidewall, so I need clarification. I'm calling Kevin.
8 foot.
Not the opposite.
I know, but Kevin's saying something different.
It
Is
can't
he
be
here?
6, but it can be 8. That doesn't make any sense.
Kevin's saying something different. Kevin, I'm sorry, I'm calling you in the middle of the meeting because this is so important. What do you mean by if he lines it up with the sidewall, it can be 8 feet? Correct. Yes, and the 4 feet on the street side is just not gonna be good because he has a dog that he said can jump it. I'm sorry, I guess that's the part that's confusing me.
So when you were saying stepped, if it comes
Okay.
where his little basement door is,
Uh-huh.
so you're looking at the facade of the side of the house, his basement door is right here. It's 4 foot high, sitting on top of that little step wall right there, coming out and turning
Okay,
4 foot high.
so,
But once it reaches a
but-
certain height, because the
so
guy
it
that's
isn't
living
4
there has
feet
to
then
step down
facing
and get closer to
the
4.
street, as long as he lines it up with the sidewall.
Yeah, but see, if you follow.
He's very close to the
Your
street, that's
fence is gonna be-
why I bring that up, because
Right,
he's
right. You can't keep that.
he's probably,
You gotta
his
keep it
house is
level.
probably,
So
what,
maybe
6
maybe
feet from the street, you think?
At one end of each panel.
Closer.
5 foot
It's
each.
closer.
It might even be closer than that, so
Long
that's
fence.
why I just wanted to double check, because if he lines it up with the
Could we put
sidewall,
this just
he's
dependent on a
gonna be,
review
you
with the
know, 4
planning
feet
and
from the
zoning?
street, because you know how those
Say again?
those houses are
Can we
on
say this is
Campbell
dependent
and
on the review
D
with planning
Street,
and
you know,
zoning?
they're right up to the,
height?
practically up to the road.
Yeah, I
Because
think we
this,
might
this
have
could
to.
get a little complicated,
Yeah.
and other applicants are,
Maybe we should just table this one.
I just think that it's
Okay.
simple for them
Yes.
to answer it with him and sometime this week if he
No,
wants to
he
come in.
wanted to do that, but that part, it sounds like he cannot do because that would make it, can he do any, he has this weird, a little bit of a weird setup where he's got a basement door that also faces the street. So he wanted to put a little privacy around that basement door that faces the street. Would you be able to do come out 4 feet? And then somehow it almost, he cannot with
I think he needs to go to zoning and not let us do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So could he do kind of like a box, coming out from that? So he could go like 4 feet, almost like box in that door, and he could, deal with that. Then once he hits the sidewall of the house, he can start going 8 feet. Okay, all right, I'm so glad I called you, because it sounded like it wasn't gonna work out too well for him. So thank you very much, Kevin.
Let's hear what this is.
It does. Thank you. Bye.
Now we have
There's-
Robin the expert, go ahead.
Well, it is confusing, because I guess if you had a yard and you were gonna try to fence it in and come out from the house, yes, that part has to be 4 feet. So Kevin's saying where your
Right, where
sidewall
the
of your
fence-
house is, you
Can
can
you
go
pull the
up
picture,
to,
pull the picture back up?
you can
It
go
shows
up
the
to
side of
8
the house.
feet.
Right.
There by your door, you're gonna have to do something creative.
Which is why I was saying I would do 4 foot there, and then sort of taper it out to 6 feet. But I can keep it 4 foot through the.
So his 6-foot height is okay then?
Yes.
It is. I'm honestly, I learned something new, and I think,
As long as it comes out from stays in line with the sidewall of the
Right.
house.
Yes, sir.
I would like in this part of our motion to say that he just turns in a simple diagram. I mean, it can take 2 minutes to draw it and make sure that's approved, because this is on a
I think I
very
already
visible street.
Yeah.
And
and
I don't want
I would
to, I
feel
don't want
more
to come
comfortable
wrong.
too if the zoning administrator saw it.
I think I
and-
submitted a diagram on there.
Okay,
I may have
Let me
not,
pull it
but
up on, for some reason, it won't let me rotate those documents on Dropbox.
but if you're saying if it's with zoning, sorry, I don't know how to
Yeah.
pronounce your last name.
Dionish.
Dionish. If it's with zoning, then I can submit something separate. into
Yeah, let's
the-
just make it contingent, because we do need to move on to other applicants.
Yeah, I think
All right.
so, too.
Okay, so.
Do you wanna?
So
A
we're gonna-
motion, there'll be a motion here.
Okay, hang on just 1 second.
So my understanding is he can go 8 foot now instead of 4.
Mhm.
Oh, there you go.
And you were only asking
I
for
gained 2
6,
feet
right?
there.
Okay, I move that the dog-eared fence be approved as submitted, 6-foot height. But it must remain level and stepped down accordingly. Period. We go, I guess we gotta get a second, right?
And, yes.
Did you add the part about the diagram to be submitted to the?
Yeah, I say contingent upon approval by zoning.
Yeah, contingent upon approval by zoning.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do we have a second on that?
Did you guys want to see this picture again? I'm
Yes.
so sorry that it's taken me.
You second?
Second,
Okay.
Mhm.
Open for discussion.
Open for discussion.
All right, what I wanted to point out is that, as you already pointed out, your house is the entrance to Daniels Hill,
Yes, sir.
the rear of your house, unfortunately, but it still is.
Right.
So you understand what I say, when I say step down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I would urge you to be very careful with that, maybe take 2 sections at a time, then try to step it down. So you will actually have, if you're stepping it down and you start out at 6 feet at this end, as you're going along and your grade is being reduced, you may get 7 foot, but you can't go beyond 8 feet.
Right.
So you'll get a space underneath where I guess you could do something to keep your dog from trying to get under
Right.
that, but if you can keep it as consistent as possible, whether it's 2 sections or 3 sections, that you have to keep stepping it down.
Right.
Because it is a very important streetscape for the entrance of Daniel Hill.
Yes, sir. And just to be clear, so you don't mean So I guess I see what you're saying. So like, here and then here and then here, kind of like that. So you're just saying there will be some
Yeah,
little
because
space
see,
that I
if you
could
try to follow the grade.
Right.
Your fence technically would have to be like that.
Right.
If you want your fence to be
Right.
square, it's gotta remain level, so you gotta
Right.
keep dropping it every so often.
Yes, sir.
So
Are you doing the fence yourself, or are you having someone do it?
Having someone do it.
Okay,
And you may
a real
want.
fence contractor will be able to know how to do that. They can do the
Right.
top two crossbars dead level, and the
Right.
bottom one can actually be at an angle, so if you want, you can actually get longer
Boards.
pickets as you go
There
down,
you
so
go.
you don't have that space for your dog underneath. It's
Right.
tricky, I've
And-
done it, you can do it.
And I would also be more than happy, I'm the advocate for for Daniels Hill,
Okay.
and I live in Daniels Hill.
Oh, great.
And this gentleman will soon be living in Daniels Hill. So
Oh,
you have
awesome.
2 Daniel Hill residents here.
That's
So I'll be
fantastic.
more than happy, even when your contractor comes, just to, because I'm very concerned as a Daniel Hill resident,
Right.
that gets laid out
Yeah,
properly.
I want it to be right. Yeah, because you're right. As soon as you come in, like it says, "Welcome to
Right,
Daniels Hill," right
so
there.
you don't want them to have one section drop and then 2 sections and then, maybe another one and then 3, and it's just gonna look so haphazard, so it's a very important streetscape,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
All right, we've had a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, moving on to the last item on,
Can I clarify
You're
on
part
that
of the
one? Because
agenda.
I know Tom's gonna ask me what all the motions were. So it's up to 8 feet because of how he has to step
Right.
down, right?
Cannot exceed 8 feet.
To not exceed 8 feet, starting at the side wall
Correct.
of the house. If he wants to enclose the door, that can be no more than 4 feet, correct? That's what you guys said? Okay, and also you want a diagram submitted to the zoning administrator showing the layout of the fence?
Well, I think it's just contingent upon their approval.
Yeah.
Right, because typically he doesn't have to approve a fence, he has to approve these types of things, but I mean, a fence doesn't require a permit, that's why I'm trying to clarify that.
So then why are we making it contingent upon that then?
Because I think Lauren wanted to be comfortable with how,
This was done over the phone.
Okay,
Yeah.
I feel
That's
the
fine.
same.
It's a lot of money, and he doesn't want to do the wrong thing and,
Okay.
and regret it.
so he'll draw a diagram for the zoning administrator, and then you're just saying that you'll come by, that's not
yeah,
a
that's a
condition.
courtesy to him as a fellow,
Okay, got
Daniels Hill resident.
it, thank you very much.
okay. The next item would be the installation of a shed.
Yeah, so just a shed to put things in the backyard. Don't really have any other means of outside storage. I have a 54-inch cut John Deere that I probably need to get rid of now that I have a much smaller yard. But yeah, a place to put that and put other things. I tried to get some. It's challenging to find something unless you get a custom built that is, there's not like Victorian necessarily sheds out there. This is just kind of a basic garden shed. And once the fence is installed, I wonder if it's even visible from the street. Likely, though, coming down onto D Street from Campbell, you would probably be able to see the top of it. Yeah, that's the meat of it there.
Applications committee?
I didn't really see a whole lot on, your recommendation, really, it's up to, I haven't bought the shed, but I'd like to have something, so I'm kind of like, this is what I'm putting forth, but I'd also like a recommendation on what I should get, whatever's appropriate.
Yes, I share your concern, I don't have one either. But, again, the entrance to Daniel Hill.
Right.
It's right there. So I think in this particular case, you are going to see that shed coming down, especially coming down that hill, because you're going to be at a higher elevation and
Right.
you'll see it. So I think in this particular situation, we would require something more in keeping with the house. I don't know that you're gonna find that in a prefab. You may
Right.
have to build something, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be probably any more expensive than buying one of these prefabs, because
Okay.
they're pretty pricey from what I've seen for what you get.
Right.
So, again, I'm the advocate for the neighborhood.
Sure.
I can help you with that. But I think you need to present something to this committee that would be more in keeping with what would have possibly been there.
Okay.
And something closer to the, in proportion to the house.
Yeah, I was
maybe.
coming through old, hoping to find some sort of old structure.
I know,
and some
it's
old picture I
difficult,
couldn't find.
it's difficult with these prefabs.
Right.
But different companies make different ones. You may find something, but I think in this particular case, you may end up just building something. It doesn't have to be complicated, very simple.
Okay.
But something that might have been there when the house was built.
Yes, sir.
Again, because of the visibility of your house, because of the visibility of that backyard, we need to be a little more stringent. I know there are the type of sheds in that neighborhood like you want.
Sure.
There's let's see, two houses, well, your house. And I was actually living there when that was brought in.
Oh, 305? Did you purchase 305? Oh, that's a great house.
Yeah, so that, see, when that shed came in, they were allowed that because there was an existing shed there already. So they were just replacing it.
Okay.
So they were allowed to do a shed like that.
Understood.
Otherwise, that probably would have been rejected too, so thankfully for James's sake, he has a.
Do we just
Would you like to make a
table that?
motion on that?
So I will move that I move that this does not meet the guidelines as submitted, and more detailed scale drawings will be required.
So just to be
Of an
clear,
alternative.
is this sort of a tabling thing where I can bring more information later, or should I submit a new COA later, or?
We can table this to next month if you like.
Okay.
So,
And you get a little leeway on the 30 days, so since you've already been here,
Okay.
if you could get it in maybe
Right.
like 2 weeks to 10 days before the meeting, so
Sure.
that we can get it to them to look at.
Okay. That
so
works.
we will table this.
Table this
I
till-
move we table it to next meeting.
To get a more detailed scale drawing of a shed, of the shed
Yes,
he's
the
like.
Of an
current
alternative
one as
design.
submitted
Okay.
does not meet our guidelines.
And one point of clarification, so once I hopefully get some sort of approval from zoning, do I just send an email to you all, or have zoning notify you all somehow that my fence is okay? Because that was part of the motion.
Your fence is approved.
Okay.
We just would like a drawing submitted to clarify exactly how you're gonna lay out the fence, with the heights.
Right.
I mean, your fence is
Okay,
approved, you
okay.
don't have to wait on that item.
And the step down also is going to apply to your picket fence too, so I don't know if we
Okay.
need to go back to that.
We need to finish this one first. So you've moved for tabling this
The next,
for next session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
and the location also will have to be at the next meeting, where you want to put this.
Okay.
And you might even consider the fact that the if you can get, I don't know does anyone know the codes as far as, could you go right on the property line with sheds?
Would you be able to meet with him as an
They're-
advocate?
Yeah.
They're
and
5
discuss
feet
these
off now.
details so
Oh,
that-
5 feet?
We did used to let them put them on the property line, now they need to be 5 feet away from all property lines.
Could you get a variance on that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Variances have to be a financial hardship, just so you know, like you're not allowed to use the property.
Well, that's not true. Mine wasn't a financial.
You got a variance?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. All right, so we're good with all of your items?
Yes, sir. Thank
As
you.
far as I know. I think
I
that's it.
think we're good.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
your
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
patience.
Okay, next is 1414 Church Street. Mr. Jay Oshrin. Thank you for your patience, kind sir.
This is gotta be the longest meeting we've ever had.
And
Unfortunately not.
I thought it was gonna be more on a
Fortunately
board.
not.
I was picturing
We've
it.
had some that went a lot
I'm
longer.
sorry, I was picturing it like
Yeah, I
on
don't
a
have a
board.
board.
Um,
They can just pass it down.
Yeah.
Or I can put it on the camera.
It's not a huge deal up there.
Okay.
It's a help.
'Cause he's gonna
I'll explain what that is in a second.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Because I met him today, and I don't know what brought that on,
Wow.
Okay,
but I got
go right ahead, sir.
Okay. Jay Oshrin, the owner of 1414 Church Street. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. What I'm proposing is the replacement of a slate roof, existing slate roof on, I'm sorry, stupid me.
Oh, thank you.
Take two of these and
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
it's not in color. So this house, Diamond Hill, right before you get to the freeway, has an existing slate roof, and I'm proposing to put a standing seam metal roof on it. So a little background. According to Lynchburg Parcel Viewer, this house was built in 1908. Current assessment is $125,600, of which $98,000 and change is the house. And the existing main roof is slate, and the original roof is unknown. This may be the original roof. There's no way to know. It's 109 years old. Historic guidelines state that original slate roofs should be preserved, maintained, and repaired. This building is 109 years old. There's no proof that this roof is original. It may have been a replacement itself. The guidelines go on to state that historic roof materials such as metal standing seam, clay tiles, and slate should be repaired and preserved. If a repair is no longer practical, replacement with an appropriate substitute material is appropriate. So with respect to the condition, despite the age of the roof, which I don't know, it's in very poor condition. I have already made numerous expensive repairs to it in recent years in order to keep water out of my tenants' bedrooms. More than one roofing company has told me that the slate is of inferior quality, and I believe that this roof is on borrowed time. It's just sort of a constant headache. With respect to appropriateness, and this is where this map comes in. So I did a little walking tour of Diamond Hill. There you are, you got it? And blue is slate roofs, and we're just talking about main roofs here, not porches or anything. Blue is slate and pink is standing seam. In fact, on the website, it actually says in the Diamond Hill blurb, it says that 52% of the roofs are standing seam, which is not true, and 25% are slate. It's more 50-50. It's a little more slate than standing seam, but there's a lot of standing seam metal roofs. It's a common material for Victorian homes and homes of this period. And on page 2, a little handout, I have a graph that shows the age breakdown of the buildings and where the standing seam roofs are on those buildings that were built at that time, construction days. So the point here is that in the 1900s, which is the same vintage as this house, 5 of the 34 standing seam metal roofs or 5 of the 34 metal standing seam roofs in Diamond Hill were in this time period. The point is, it's not like all of a sudden they stopped putting standing seam metal roofs in 1890. That didn't happen. They kept using them. So in my mind, there's no doubt that I need to replace this roof as soon as possible. It's beyond repair. I've consulted and gotten quotes from no less than 6 reputable roofing contractors: Gravit Construction, Lynchburg Roofing, Melvin Morgan, Sentry, All Phase, and Woodall Lang. And re-roofing with any materials is an expensive affair. It's not like standing seam is going to be cheap either. It won't be, but the quotes I have to replace the roof with slate range from about $26,000 to $35,000. This will certainly rise as the contractor encounters rotten wood and or recommends the replacement of the intermittent slats with solid sheathing, which is probably what I'm going to do. The city's current assessed value of the house is $98,000. I've already spent a small fortune making major structural repairs, several due to the leaky roof, replacing the HVAC, renovating the kitchen, 2 bathrooms, as well as a number of other smaller but not insignificant repairs. I know and understand that the HPC does not factor economics into their decisions, but I do. I'm a landlord, a property owner, an investor. I have a business to run. If the economics don't work for me and ostensibly for other would-be investors, then these beautiful but old and weathered and outdated buildings stay that way, depressing property values, others adjacent to them, reducing the tax base, and blighting neighborhoods. having to spend what will likely be $30,000 to $40,000 on only one component of a house that is assessed at only $98,000 is in my mind onerous and unreasonable. So in summary, I'm proposing to remove the existing slate roof, replace it with a factory finished standing seam metal roof, identical to the finish of the porch roof that was recently approved and installed. And is it James?
Yes.
I own the house across the street from you, 306.
Okay.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Same exact roof on that house, which is recently installed as well. For these reasons, the existing roof is beyond repair. The existing roof is not necessarily original to the building, and nearly 50% of the roofs in Diamond Hill Historic District are standing seam metal, and standing seam metal is a common roofing material of this age. Thanks for your consideration.
All right, thank you for that. Applications Committee?
Well, I've spoke with Jay before,
Hi, Rick.
and I know your plight. Obviously, it does not meet the, well, you know, I don't know if it does. You did mention in here, I was trying to find that, where it does state impracticality.
Page 70, if repair is no longer practical, replacement with an appropriate materials.
Okay, I think with that statement, it would meet the guidelines, because I have gone by there, I've seen that roof, it does look rough. And I will move that it be approved as submitted, for the reasons mentioned, as well as the guidelines. I can understand perfectly well why a house that's valued at $98,000 would not substantiate a $40,000 investment in a roof. And from anyone's point of view, landlord or homeowner, I think that's a practical solution in this particular case.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, you didn't think you did that, did you?
Happy roofing, you've done your
I'd like
homework.
to, just for anyone watching this meeting, or attending.
That's because we're all tired.
We will, no, it's really not. This is
This is the way it should
incredibly
be done.
informative. That was,
Yeah.
and so this really helps us. When someone does their research and quotes from our guidelines, and, I mean, this is more research than we'd ever really expect, but it's always, I know
Well,
where you're
I-
coming from. You'd rather be overkill and get it approved, but that is really helpful. When this committee's given no information, or nebulous, or fuzzy information,
Never happens.
no, it doesn't happen, but I do really appreciate this,
Yeah.
and also appreciate what you're doing for the historic district, because you're maintaining and keeping a lot of good buildings up
Thank you.
there.
Do you have any other houses that are slate roofs?
510 Victoria,
So you're not going to,
but that's not in historic district.
but you're not discarding these slates, I hope. I mean, are you going to save them?
I do save them. I save the good ones,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that would be a recommendation, obviously not a
What
mandate.
what
but-
would one do with them once they save them?
Well, you know, you could put them on eBay, because I'm sure that people looking, or Craigslist or something like that, because I'm sure that people, I mean, I know people that
Yeah.
look for these kind of things.
Craigslist.
But maybe start local with the
Yeah.
roofing companies, because if
Yeah.
it's used here and could be reused here.
The-
And if nothing else.
In this
I-
case, they're not great slates. I've been
Well,
up on the roof, it's.
What I would
not great
recommend,
condition.
if you don't want them, call Lynchburg Restoration. I know Randy Parr will take them.
Randy Parr.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
You want his number?
And I'm not trying to
I'll find
rush our applicant here, but I don't have dinner, I don't have a kid obligation or work obligation, but I agreed to be an advocate at 2245 Vermont. And I was just asking, do we have enough of a quorum that if I was to leave to go meet, I delayed the meeting by an hour, but is it okay for you guys to review these last few?
Yeah, there's one left.
Okay.
It's just one.
And I apologize, I shouldn't have done this advocacy thing, but it's the Sorrentoses who are trying to take it back to a better.
Stoshman, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
110 Harrison Street, and thank you
Thank you.
in advance for your patience.
And Chris, I just want to remind you, this is the applicant who's not currently the owner, but he's close to being the owner.
Yes, correct.
So maybe, if you do decide decide to approve the application, we say that it's, he needs to show when he actually becomes the owner.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
I'm John Caleb Sanders, 110 Harrison Street. In regards to the closing, it was scheduled for the 3rd, that's why I was here, and then they keep pushing it back. My wire went out on Friday and just talked to the closing agency, and basically they're just putting into our name, should be in my name, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I'll come back in and clarify everything.
Okay, great. If you could just briefly explain the nature of the COA?
Yes, we have 3 things. Renovating 110 Harrison. We have an old shingle roof, it's not original. Gutters that I believe were done about 10 months ago. I was renovating a house across the street, and there was someone doing something on there. They looked like they were just Lowe's purchased gutters that they tried to piece together, and they're falling apart. And at the same time, about 10 months ago, guy was painting over there and just painted the exterior trim of the windows, and we were trying to just paint that a different color. That's just my wife's preference on that. I sent in the colors, but on that I'm pretty open to negotiation. If y'all don't want anything, whatever you want on that, I'm willing to work with. But the roof is not in functioning condition. The shingles are, I would say, 25, hard to tell, but they're not functioning. There's water coming into the attic, so roof and gutters are the main 2 things.
Okay. Applications Committee?
The roof is currently asphalt,
Yes,
so you're replacing in kind.
yes, just a traditional 3-tab shingle is what my roofer has given me, but I can do.
And the gutters they're not half round,
They're not right now.
but you can, if I'm not mistaken, he can replace in kind, right, Robin?
I was going to do a traditional, I actually just texted him while I was sitting here for a while. He said he can do a half round. If y'all weren't gonna let it, I was gonna go to half round, but I would rather go with the traditional.
Well, if you're replacing in kind, you can.
Okay, that's what I would like to go with, yes, sir.
So as far as is this all one application?
Yes, it is.
As far as the color goes, for your particular house, usually the base color is darker, excuse me, and the trim is lighter, but you already have the opposite of that. That's not his.
That's
That
not
is.
my house. That's what
A
the
neighbor's.
color we're going for.
Right,
So that's
top
the
one
house
is.
up there.
Right.
And the guy painted it about 10 months ago. It's actually in pretty good shape. The paint, the exterior paint. I just don't like the color of around the window trim. And my
Well-
wife tagged this picture, and that's the kind of color we're going for.
This is lighter than what's there, correct?
Yeah, it actually
Well, I
is
would-
looking now.
okay.
On our computer, it didn't look like that, but
What we recommend is that the body be darker than the trim, but in
Okay.
this case, since you're making the trim lighter than what it already is, I guess that's kind of moving toward the right direction. So I'll move that the roof and the gutters meet guidelines as they are being replaced in kind, and the color, even though it does not meet the guidelines, it is lighter than what is already there, which also does not meet the guidelines. So we recommend approval on that.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on that one? Or any of those items, rather? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful.
thank you.
You are free to proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then if you don't mind, I'm not gonna have, Tom will issue this COA till
Yes, ma'am.
you guys.
As soon as what do you want? Do you just want like a HUD statement to come in here that has my name on it? What do you-
Yeah, or we can wait until it officially gets changed on the assessor's record,
Okay.
which usually takes about 10 days after your closing.
Okay.
Is that,
I'll probably try to get something first. My roofers, I already told him about it about 3 weeks
Okay.
ago, so he has me on schedule, I think for, he's not on schedule, he has me penciled in for, I think, July
don't see what the big deal is.
25th, maybe?
yeah, then definitely bring something from the
I'll get some
closing.
documentation.
Okay,
have my-
that sounds good.
Thank you. So we did have one other item. It was a
Oh, I'm
tabled.
so sorry. Dylan, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Dylan called, I think Annette Kinsey the representative that was here last time, I think she misunderstood.
Okay.
She thought she had approval for both,
Yeah.
although
But
she
he's making
submitted
it
such
more
detailed parts about the sign.
Right.
For some reason, the Lynchburg Art Club thought they were already approved. We'll call and make that clarification tomorrow, so I think what you're gonna need to do is table that one more month, which
Okay.
we usually will do 2 tables and then
Okay.
no more.
Do we need to vote on tabling
Yeah,
it?
if we
Okay.
could.
So, just real briefly, if we could, if I could have a motion to table tabled item number 1, table it one more time until the August meeting. It was for the Lynchburg Art Club, until they get their ducks in a row and bring the appropriate information.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion for doing that?
I said,
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, it's tabled.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.